Let's try that again. Oh yeah, that's much better.
Some nice waveforms.
Yeah, we got some nice blue little waveforms of my wonderful voice that everybody gets to listen to every week.
I've got green waveforms. I feel better about green waveforms for some reason. I don't know why.
See, now I want to make mine green because that just seems better.
Yeah.
That seems like a better color. Went on a 4.45 mile hike this morning through the woods with Emmy.
Nice.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. I mean, I woke up to temperatures of like the mid 50s, low 60s, and nice fog, misty kind of conditions outside.
Yeah.
And so kind of got myself ready, got her ready, and then headed out. And as we made it over to the park, because the park's it's 14 miles away, so maybe like 15, 20 minutes-ish. And there's an abandoned landscaping business that's just off the side of the road. It has a chain link fence all around it with like the sliding gate kind of set up. And I've had my eyes on it for the past few months because the building's kind of cool looking, and there's a abandoned truck that has the company name and the number on the side of it. It's one of those box trucks.
Yeah.
And scattered along the box truck are a bunch of like just stacks of bags of what I'm assuming is like mulch or fertilizer, just left there. And this has been abandoned for a couple years now.
Yeah.
I don't remember really ever seeing it actually in business. So I don't think it's one of the shutdowns because of COVID or anything.
Yeah.
I think it's just been shut down for the past like 6 years or so, which obviously raises questions of like why'd they shutter? Why?
Yeah, there's some story behind it for sure.
Exactly. Like why just abandon God, I can only imagine how expensive that truck would have been for them. But what looked to be a couple of years ago, maybe a nice looking box truck that probably ran great, but yeah. For some reason, like they just left all this stuff scattered about, and that land has been for lease for, like I said, for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, probably all overgrown now, ironically, for a landscaping company. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've had my eye on those like kind of 2 photographs from that area, so long as I could get my lens close enough to the chain link fence that it wouldn't affect the composition, wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
And so since we had the mist and everything, I ended up stopping, and I spent like an hour there.
Now, was this with the Fuji or with the Ricoh?
Yeah, this was with the Fuji.
Okay, cool.
So I ended up spending about an hour just working the scenes, and not so much the building and the truck as what I ended up finding on the ground. Right, because this is right off the side of the road, but what I ended up finding on the ground between the road and the chain link fence. Mm-hmm. But before I get to that, I ended up coming away with a ton of image files from this area just because I've been trying to do a lot of focus stacking.
Okay.
Because you don't have the tilt of the lens in order to get everything from front to back in sharp focus. And like the one composition that I have is a vertical composition of the building, but in front of the building, right against the chain link fence, were these large, like outdoor pots, like for planting, for plants and everything. Real nice, like I guess it would be true clay pots. So higher quality, probably like $80 each for given how they go in the stores and everything.
Yeah.
Just only I could get behind that fence.
There's probably some plants growing in them now with everything being abandoned for as long as it has been.
Surprisingly enough, I didn't see any.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I was actually thinking that after, like as I was driving to the park, like, oh, it would have been really cool to kind of have that like kind of dichotomy almost. Yeah. But no, surprisingly enough, they were empty. There was nothing growing in them.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to get those pots sharp as well as the building itself. Luckily, David Kingham has been gracious enough to let me send him some files to merge in Helicon focus because Photoshop does a terrible job of blending those files.
What focal length were you using to take the photos?
So for this, I was using the Midicon 65 millimeter, which is roughly a 50 mil.
Okay. Yeah. And that
close
gets tricky
focus
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, its close focus isn't the best. And it was probably made worse because I was photographing it wide open at 1.4, which is roughly 1.0 aperture.
Oh, that's going to be some oddities there.
But I was doing that because of the fact of the chain link fence in front.
Oh, that's true. Very true. Yeah.
Because I couldn't, the openings in the fence weren't big enough for me to like push my lens through it to look through one of the openings. So I knew that I was going to have that chain link fence there. So having a wide open aperture kind of mitigated that so that it should be okay, but we'll see how it ends up looking. But regardless, ended up with a lot of files, very large files. And I realized that I really should carry more SD cards with me because my one SD card filled up.
How big of a card was it?
64.
Oh yeah,
64 gigabytes.
That'll be eaten up pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also doesn't help that I hadn't formatted it in a while, so that's also something that I need to get used to doing more regularly.
Yeah.
Formatting them and just carry like 2 more cards with me just in case. But as I was taking these photographs, I ended up doing a panorama of the truck that way I could get the truck and the mulch in the shot, kind of tell that story a little bit. Mm-hmm. And finished up with that, and I turn around, and on the ground is this collection of bones. I'm like, oh, cool. Like,
yeah.
I'm working on this Memento Mori series of photographs of bones and skulls and such, and was not at all expecting these. And from the looks of it, they're cat bones. So again, you have this new kind of story that's being told, like, and these questions going in my mind as Emmy is in the car kind of freaking out, like, why aren't you back? Why has it been an hour that you've been leaving me? And so it ended up with the cat skull and maybe like a foot or 2 away from the other collection of the bones. And so I ended up playing around with that for quite a while, for longer than the building and the truck, actually.
Yeah.
Ended up switching over to my 120 millimeter macro because of having that better ability for macro for getting closer, playing around with more creative compositions than just straight on. And again, played around with focus stack, but I really don't know how that one is going to turn out because something that I try to do with a lot of my more recent Memento Mori photographs is kind of really play into that dichotomy between life and death. So showing the life of the plants around these bones and everything.
Yeah.
But because being right off the side of the road, even though it was like 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, there was a ton of traffic going by. And this isn't like it's not like it's a highway or anything. It's a decent road, but I was not expecting as much traffic as there was, especially truck traffic.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed that the files turn out okay, that they're able to merge properly, even with that movement or potential movement. But if not, I have one that's okay enough that even as a single shot, it should be fine.
And I would think that since you work in black and white, I wonder if that will help to disguise some of the strangeness that can happen when doing the focus stacking. Because I think when you're looking at a color image, you might notice some of those things a little bit more versus in black and white, you just have the various shades of gray, and you might, certain things might fly under the radar a little bit more where, if you look for them, you might see them, but I would imagine it's probably going to be a bit more forgiving in that sense. So that could be a benefit to you. Yeah,
I mean, you're already starting at a very abstract point when you're starting with black and white. So there are a lot more liberties that you can take with those images. But yeah, I mean, that was, like I said, I started the day off photographing that stuff, and by the time we got to the park, the mist was pretty much gone. The fog and cloudy conditions were burned off from the sun, and it started to get pretty warm. But
then you start having a nice day where you can actually just, enjoy the springness of it all.
Yeah. I mean, it was funny too, because we did our 4.45 mile walk, whatever it was. And I got some writing done because I like to kind of sit down in the at some point, maybe like the halfway point, sit down, have Emmy just like learn to relax and enjoy doing nothing.
Yeah.
Even though she was at a couple points just busy trying to play with ants, which doesn't really work when you're a 12-pound puppy trying to push your face and paws into ants and get them to play. It's not...
They don't like to play.
No, not really. Not like that, at least.
Yeah.
But then we get home and I obviously did what my family calls bugga check, which is just checking her for ticks, and ended up pulling 50 of them off. I lost count when I hit 50.
Wow.
So yeah, she was covered.
She's luckily, got fairly long fur too, right?
I keep it to roughly a 1/4 inch. I actually I just gave her a haircut yesterday or 2 days ago. And I purposely did that because of us going out more, and that way she doesn't get so hot and everything too. Yeah. And I don't have to worry about her fur matting or any of that kind of stuff. But the only nice thing that I will say is that even though she did have over 50 on her, it's not like any of them like bit her. That's because her fur is so like thick and curly that they kind of like can't easily get to her skin.
Oh, that's good.
They get kind of confused, and even so, she has her tick and flea medications that she takes each month and all of that. So it kills them as soon as they bite her, and she doesn't have like major risk of Lyme disease or anything like that.
Yeah.
I did try to put on this spray, like kind of perfume stuff almost that my mom had that's supposed to repel ticks. I put that on her, rubbed it on her back and her...
I think I say you were putting it on yourself.
Well, I actually did.
Oh, okay.
I did spray it on my legs because I wanted to see if it worked.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like this all natural kind of thing. Yeah. Put it on her legs, put it on the top of her head and on her back, rubbed it in like it says to. And at least it smells good because it didn't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those gimmicks that my mom decided to fall for because, Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. It was a great way to spend the day.
That's good. Yeah. When you're talking about the box truck there, it reminded me of there's this, I don't know, a couple miles or so from where I am. There's this box truck that is in someone's yard. It's a classy move. Uh-huh. And on the side of that box truck, it had lettering that said "Puppies for sale." Right?
That's messed up.
And then after a while, the letters started kind of falling off, and then about a year later, it just said "Pies for sale."
Oh, I mean that's convenient that it fell off that way.
It is. I'm very suspicious of those pies. Because clearly they didn't sell the puppies, and now they're selling pies. So I don't know.
That's a good point.
Very, very suspicious.
Especially if they specifically say that they're meat pies, then I would stay far away from that.
But I always thought that would have made for an interesting photo. But yeah, I'm not gonna be stopping and taking a picture of that because I don't think good things are gonna happen as a result of that.
So with that sign, was it stylized like pies for like the numerical, or was it FOR?
I think it was FOR. I think it was FOR. It could have been the number 4, but I think it was FOR. Yeah.
I always think that like if it was like the number 4 little quirky kind of individuals, then maybe you might have problems. But on the opposite side of that, if it's actually spelled out properly, then might be taken very seriously and might actually use puppies for meat pies. But
yeah. But either way, I don't think I would want to be buying puppies or pies from a box truck.
No, I can't say that would be my first choice.
Yeah. So I've had, we got to talk about skating,
do we have to?
We do. Because I promise this leads to something.
I'm sure it does. Besides spandex?
Not just spandex. Just spandex,
right.
Yeah.
All right, then it might be worth it.
So it was 2 years ago that I got the inline skates. And, I use them quite a bit. And eventually the wheels start getting smaller and smaller with time. I rotate them to try to make sure that I keep the wear as even as possible. But I kind of forget how much they had worn until I started looking at, getting some new wheels. And I saw a picture of the same skates that I have. And they're 110 millimeter wheels. I looked at a new pair of skates, and there was a tiny gap between those wheels. Now I look at mine, and there's a significantly larger gap, just showing that those wheels have gotten so much smaller. But anyways, I was looking at ordering some replacement wheels. And so the same company I have the skates from, K2, they sell replacement wheels, but there's hardly any inventory on them. Like you can't just order 8 wheels. There's like maybe one place that'll sell 2 wheels. Another place might have 3 in stock. It's very bizarre. And they're $35 each. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
And by the time you get new wheels, you should also probably get some new bearings. And so for wheels plus bearings, you're looking at almost $350, which the skates, I mean, they were expensive skates. They're like $800, but still $350 is a lot. So I was looking for new wheels on Amazon just to see what was there. And then I came across the listing for the actual skates. And, like whether it's cars or whether it's other things, there's, new model years for stuff. So I looked at how much my skates that I've had for 2 years, what do they sell for new now? And I clicked on it and it said, okay, I wear a size 12. I clicked on size 12. I could buy the new skates for $350 just because they're closing them out. There's probably something new. So I just said, it makes more sense just to order a whole new pair of skates. So I ordered them in. The boots I have are fine, but things start to show a little bit of wear and stuff. So I figure I'll keep using the skates I have now until at some point I'll switch over to the new ones. And I was telling my wife about that. So she looked it up on Amazon and she's like, oh, wow, 350 is pretty good. And then she started looking at the different sizes and she said, you can get a size 9.5 for $125, which, obviously that's not going to fit me, but the idea is you just steal all the parts off of it. Right. So I also ordered a size 9.5. And I took the wheels off, I took the frames off, I took the laces off, I took the axles, the bearings. I took everything I could and transferred it to my old skates. And now just before we were recording, I'm sitting there with these like brand new like boots, like they have like this carbon fiber cuffs and everything. I'm like, I'm just going to throw them away. And it struck me as being wasteful in a way, because here are these skates, and not as though these skates have feelings or anything, but like, just imagine these skates like, oh, cool. Yeah, we're brand new. We're going to go on some adventures. We're going to go skating, and then we're going to get buried in a landfill. But I don't know. I
this is why we don't think like that, Ben.
This is why we
don't think of our objects as having feelings or conscious.
but at the same time, just thinking about like all the resources that went into producing these skates. They were shipped overseas. They were assembled in Thailand. So they went across the Pacific in a big cargo ship, and then they sat in a warehouse for a while, and just everything involved in getting into me. And I'm just take a few parts off them and then just throw them away. So it got me thinking about consumption and everything along those lines, and how things just, when you're done with things, you just throw them in the trash can. They just magically disappear. But at the same time, they're just getting buried in a hole forever. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird place where we have this disconnect from, our society and how things just magically disappear. But I don't know. I felt bad for the little skates, and they were little. They were 9.5.
Hey, no, that's my shoe size.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
don't judge. Dig through the trash if you want some skates.
I'm only 5'7", 5'8", so yeah. I'm not like walking around with clown shoes on or anything.
well, I will say that when I got the skates were delivered, they're out on the porch. I pulled them inside, and then my wife was sitting there watching TV, and I pulled them out, and my wife was like, I want to. Put them on just so they've had at least some fun in their life. And so as adults do, just wearing skates, skating around the house. So they did have a little bit of use before they were tossed. But, if you're interested in some 9.5 skates, I got them. There's no wheels on them. So
so it's just the boots. So that's like
just the boots, and then some of the old parts for mine.
Yeah, no, it's okay. My skates that are sitting on the floor in front of me here, they don't really see much use because, I live on top of a hill and I'm not going down the hill on them because I won't be able to make it next week to the recording if I do.
Yes. It'll just be screams and then just someone disappearing into the trees or something, just
not just trees. I mean, like, if I go down this hill and I can't stop myself on skates, I go flat for like 2 seconds across the road and then down to another hill and then into trees. So I'll be recording from the hospital.
Yeah.
But, so I don't really
beeping in the background and stuff. Which,
exactly. It probably wouldn't be great audio.
Yeah.
Make for a great story though. So maybe it's worth it.
Yeah. Assuming someone could tell it. Yeah. But it's kind of in my mindset of the whole consumption thing because I'm also getting ready for the spring backpacking trip, which I won't be able to go for another week or so. So I'm watching the weather on that. But just when you're out in the field on a backpacking trip, one of the things that is really nice is if there is some items you bring with you that have multiple purposes, which I think is a good philosophy to adopt for, other things, as well, just beyond that. And then also the other thing is buying things that will last a long time as opposed to simply what's the cheapest. And right. I think that's one of the really big flaws in our society is that people are just drawn to whatever is the cheapest, but without thinking about how long that item will last, and everything else along those lines. And so much stuff is just designed to be disposable these days, which I know we've talked about a little bit in the past, but there is something to be said about something that will stand the test of time, even though it may be a little bit more expensive. So those are other thoughts I've been going through my mind as I've been skating and everything else along those lines. But I will say, going on I went on a skate yesterday with the new wheels, the new bearings. It was notably better. I ended up skating 20 miles yesterday. I did 3 laps around the route that I go skating. Right. The only thing that really bummed me out though is that when I got 3 miles in, there's this turnaround point, and then you skate back. I pulled out my phone and I was going to go to a playlist, but in the process of doing that, I accidentally paused the Strava app that was recording.
Oh no.
So my 20 miles do not count. It says I did 3.5 or something like that. And I'm like,
oh, then why even bother getting out of the house?
I know, right?
Do like 20 plus. I mean, come on.
It does not count. So I don't know. If I did 4 laps, it would have been basically a marathon. So I don't know. I'll end up having to do that again at some point. But I was a little bummed that it did not count.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that makes me think about so now that I'm working with digital again, and my nose is all stuffed up, which is glorious.
Good old allergies, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's really bad. It's stupid because all morning while I'm out in the woods, among trees with a bunch of really high pollen content, and they're mowing some of the trails and everything, my nose is beyond clear, like perfectly fine. Except I come into the car, I come home, and it's like all stuffed up, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah. Perfect timing.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, no, but speaking of like that, throwing things away and everything, that it kind of makes me think now that I'm working with digital, like, what do I do with all of this film stuff? Because in all honesty, I don't have any plans of going back to large format, and especially no plans of going back to medium format film. Yeah. Just because I've found myself so much happier in a way. Maybe content is a better word with that, but I really enjoy using the Fuji. Like, I love using the Fuji. I love bringing it out. I love having the freedom to experiment with photographs around the house and not worry that, I'm spending $5 per photo. Like,
yeah,
$10 if you include the processing and everything. Like, so each photograph is worth $10. Well, then I'm not going to take the risks, and the creative challenges aren't going to be the same as they are able to be with digital. And so I'm stuck with, like, I don't want to say stuck, but I'm left with like these brand new Chamonix 4x5 film holders that are just sitting in the closet that I bought, 3 months before getting the Fuji.
Yeah.
And I have the Mamiya RB67 Pro SD that's just been collecting dust that I haven't used since I think November, probably November. That I'll probably end up selling, but still, it's one of those things like, yeah, I don't plan on throwing this stuff away because that would just be dumb, but also because there's some kind of like sentimental, emotional attachment to these things in a way because of having created so many works that I really love with them. But still, it just makes me feel bad that they're just like sat here collecting dust.
Yeah.
And
I do think that as the pendulum has a tendency to swing back and forth, I think you will probably revisit it at some point. I mean, not as a primary way of taking photos,
right?
But I do think that you will revisit it. And in the meantime, that stuff tends to go up in value.
Yeah.
So it does make sense to hold on to it. But I don't know.
Like for me, it's not even the value thing. Like I know that since I bought it, the Mamiya, the RB has gone down in value. I think I paid maybe $200 more than what it's worth now. But it's more so just the fact that I've put it's just the fact that it's sitting there and not like being used. And I know that especially with these mechanical cameras that if they're not used, if the mechanisms aren't being like rotated through and functioned as they should be, that bad things happen to them. So like I said, I don't know. I'm probably going to list the RB on eBay as much as I hate eBay.
Yeah.
Unless anyone here listening would like to talk about buying it. But other than that, the 4x5 is just going to sit and wait. And like you said, maybe the pendulum will swing and I'll have like a specific project that I would like to use film with or something along the lines, or just pull it out for old time's sake, so to speak.
Yeah. Is there a camera you've ever sold that you regretted selling?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. The Pentax 6.7 with the 105 2.4.
Okay.
I had that. It was I've had a couple of like quote unquote dream cameras, specifically along film cameras. And I've owned pretty much every one that I've really wanted, except for one so far. But the Pentax is the one that I regret selling the most. Like I had that in 2019, took it down to South Carolina, took some photographs of my girlfriend in the water and everything, with the cypress trees in the background and everything.
Yeah.
Lovely camera. Loved it. But I ended up selling it because of primarily using the 4x5 and I think I sold it because of getting the Chamonix because I needed something better and wanted to kind of recoup some of that money. But then ended up getting the Hasselblad that I kept for a month before selling.
Yeah.
Another dream camera that just didn't work out. And now I have the RB, but
yeah, I've never I've sold off a lot of gear through the years, back from when I was doing the early wave of digital stuff as it was coming about, and then a variety of different film cameras. And, I enjoyed working with the stuff that I had while I had it, but oftentimes if I decided to sell it, it was for a particular reason. And it didn't match my style of working, or it wasn't quite what I had in mind. And so usually along with that decision, or with that knowledge as to why it just didn't fit my style, I've never looked back on the stuff I've sold and thought, oh man, I wish I still had that.
Yeah. Like I said, I sold the Pentax really for two reasons the more I think about it. The first, like I said, was because of getting the Chamonix. But the other thing was that was also a time where I was debating if I wanted to start experimenting with color film, specifically with Portra. Yeah. And because the Pentax, you can only load one film type at a time. You don't have interchangeable backs.
Yeah.
So that kind of made me lean towards something else, or ultimately just stick with the 4x5 and try it, which I didn't end up doing anyway, but still.
Yes. Well, it's just one of the steps in the path to get you to where you are now. So they all served a purpose for one reason or another.
Yeah, I mean that's still one camera that I look on eBay and I'm like, those prices aren't so bad anymore. Like, I could get another one, and that's one camera that I would get and use every so often, put it through its paces, but otherwise would just have, because it's a beautiful looking camera, especially with that wooden grip, even though it's on the wrong side. But
yeah, but it's kind of a strange design for that, but I see it. Yeah,
whatever. I mean, that thing's a beast, but still. So, in other news too, one of the other reasons probably why I should go about selling the RB, it looks like I'm going to be flying out to Washington State in beginning of June.
Oh wow! What's the reasoning?
So there's a photographer, John Peterson, who he's a co-host of a photography podcast called We Talk Photo with Jack Graham. John and I have talked for on and off over the past few years, and it was actually Jack who, shortly after my being on their podcast, he invited me to a workshop out in Ohio, which was October of 21. He invited me out there, and it was the first workshop that I've ever participated in. It was very odd to be 20 some years younger than the rest of the participants. But I had a great time with him and Bill Fortney. And ever since then, John and I have loosely played with the idea of me doing something similar, but on one of his workshops, of just being a guest to one of his workshops.
Nice. What type of photography?
So this is all going to be just nature kind of photography. Cool. Specifically, the one with John that I'm joining him for is in the Palouse. So
that's a really beautiful area.
That's what I've kind of gathered from it. But that's also kind of why I'm like, so I'm kind of debating, and I know that I'm ultimately going to do it, but I need to rent a lens for this trip. So first of all, this trip is going to be the first time that I've ever gone anywhere, like besides that Ohio trip. It's the only time that I've gone anywhere solo, especially to the other side of the country.
Yeah.
And it's also my first time flying solo.
Yeah.
Which is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, flying with digital is going to be a lot easier than flying with film and not have to deal with all of that kind of stuff. But
yeah, for sure.
Just as there are downsides with large format, if I had still been using that, there are downsides with medium format digital in that the telephoto range is not the best.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about where you're going to be going, because that definitely seems like it is a long lens sort of location to pick out those compositions as the light changes and all the very interesting rolling hills and all the possibilities there.
Yeah, I mean, John recommends a medium telephoto and a long telephoto. He said that he was going to be using, when we go to the, is it the Step Butte? I think is the name of it. Steptoe Butte. I think that's it. He said that he's going to be using a crop sensor body with a 400 millimeter lens and a 1.4 teleconverter.
Oh, geez, that's a long reach. Yeah.
You're talking like probably 1,000 millimeter reach, roughly like that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less, but still. So you can tell that my brain is just not firing on all cylinders today because of this walk and the heat and everything. Yeah. Because I went on to lens rentals and was looking. I'm like, okay, I know that Pentax from their 645 series cameras, they have some longer lenses. For right now, Fuji, the longest that they offer is the 250 millimeter, which is equivalent to 197 millimeters or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not a very telephoto lens. You're doing
a lot of
lens.
Cropping. Yeah.
Exactly. And I have that ability with 50 megapixels, but I don't want to lose any detail if I can't, or if I don't have to. So I know that they have a 600 millimeter lens and they have a 400 millimeter lens. And unfortunately, I can't seem to find the 600 millimeter lens from lens rentals or well, I guess it's just Lens Rentals now because Borrow Lenses was bought out by them like a month ago, apparently. But they do have the 400 millimeter. It's a 400 millimeter 5.6 lens, which cool. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Is that that's gotta be a pretty big lens, all right?
Definitely. Yeah.
What's the aperture on that one? You said what did you say, a 5.6 or what is it?
The aperture is 5.6. Yeah. So it is 5.6 aperture to f45. It's about 10 inches long and about 3.5 inches in diameter.
That doesn't seem very big. Is it a extending? I mean, I don't know.
It's a prime lens, so I don't know if it does extend with focus, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, because that seems small.
I don't think it does because normally they'll put like a with the length they'll put what it extends to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. So anyway, like I'm kind of thinking that I'll end up renting that.
Yeah.
But as I was figuring out, okay, what is this trip going to cost me and everything, and can I afford to do this? I figured out the hotel room. Since that was per day, when I looked at this lens rental, I'm like, all right, it's $124 per day. And for 5 days, okay, it's going to be the same, cost me the same as the hotel room. And then I was talking on the LPW Discord, and I'm like, okay, was asking the people that are a part of the PNW group for that, like, is this necessary? Like, do I really need to rent this lens? Because 400 millimeters on the Fuji is roughly equivalent to 316 millimeters.
Yeah.
Again, not super telephoto, definitely the most telephoto lens that I've ever used, and it'll get me by. I figure that'll be decent enough. It'll give me enough of a challenge where I can't get in super tight, but again, I have cropping if I need to, etc. All this time that I'm asking them, I'm like, all right, so do I really want to spend $600 on this lens? And then someone was like, well, did you look at the price of what renting the Fuji 100 to 200 would be? Because then it would give you a little bit more flexibility, maybe not have the same amount of reach, but still. And then I realized that I'm not very smart and it's $124 for a 7-day rental.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'd be stupid not to do it.
Yeah.
Especially because I contacted one of the online photography publications that I've written for before. And I was like, hey, would you have interest in an article that is part my story of the trip, parts my perceptions on using adaptic glass on the Fuji, so using Pentax glass on the Fuji? And the editor got back to me and was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to look at it and see. So I know that it's an article that I can sell and therefore recoup my cost on renting this lens entirely. So it's just one of those things of like, I realized that I'm like, yeah, why am I even asking? Like, just it's $125 when this trip is going to be ultimately costing me closer to $1,500 for the 5 days. Like, if I'm going to do it, I may as well just do it. And that way, like, as much as I'm really just okay going there. I know that the first day that I'll be there before the main group gets there, John and I and a couple others will be going to this old truck farm and photographing there. And I know that I'll be able to get photos there and kind of work on a different collection of works. And so I know that I'm not going to come away empty-handed, even if I'm not able to photograph, like, quote-unquote, properly at Steptoe Butte.
Oh, yeah.
But even still, like, I'm like, if I'm going to do this and we're going to be going there, at least try. Like, I'm as much as I'm okay just, like, taking a backseat for that, maybe helping out some other people, and, like, as much as I'm cool with that, at the same time, I'm kind of like, but if I see something, I want to be able to try and get it.
Yeah.
Like, and once I'm there, like, I know that more so the $125 is worth spending on the lens so that I can take some of those photographs and then not hear it from my parents that I came away with photographs of old trucks and that was it. You know what I mean? Because I know that, like, they'll be like, you spent how much for this?
I'm also picturing a scenario where you're atop the viewpoint area, you got the rolling hills of stuff, you got the long lens with you, and then you look down on the ground, you're like, I see a dead lizard. This is really awesome. And then you start honing in on, like, getting that close-up shot of it, and, like, you're gonna find stuff.
That's the thing too. Like, I sent email back to John, and I'm like, like give me an itinerary of what's exactly what we're doing so I can get a better idea of whether I want to rent this. And even so, I'm like, even if I don't rent it, or even if I rent it and don't use it, I know I'm going to be able to find stuff because my lens is pointed at the ground like 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Especially now with this macro lens that I've been using and photographing on this Memento Mori series. Like, I know I'm going to be able to find something, and it's going to drive some of these older photographers crazy when I go there and we have this beautiful sunrise light and like beautiful conditions and along the Palouse, and I'm pointing my lens at a dead lizard on the ground, and they're going to be like, what in the hell is this young whippersnapper doing?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lesson to be learned there. That's the thing that I know whenever I go into my trips. Like, I mean, I'll have my backpacking trip coming up, and I always end up putting some pressure on myself in terms of, there's just one particular scene that has evaded me in the past, and I really would like to photograph that this year. But then if I get there and then things are not as I would hope, yeah, you feel a little bummed about that. But at the same time, I always remind myself when going on these trips that I will always find something. There is always something to be found, something of interest. And I think so much of it is a matter of just being in the right mindset where you are open to the surroundings. And I think that might be maybe a bit more of a challenge for you on the trip, just because it will be a different sort of trip for you. It'll be, the cross country flying by yourself and then everything else. But I think it'll be a matter of being in that mindset where you're open to your surroundings and the possibilities of the dead lizards and such. But you'll find it. I think it might take a little while to kind of drop into that mode from separating it from the travel mode. But yeah, I think you'll get into that mode.
Yeah. It's kind of funny too, because like I'm already setting myself about a month before the trip. I'm setting my expectations to be, I'm going on this just for the experience of doing such a big trip on my own for the first time. It's not so much about the photography that I get. Like, I know I'm not going to go there and expect to get these great photos of a very popular location that's been overshot. Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to,
because it's not really your style anyways for like the perfected everything, it's more of the stuff that has a story. And so, it's a different sort of style even anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I'm not trying to put those kind of expectations on myself. Like, I'm going because John invited me. It's a great opportunity, and it's just something like that I can't really say no to. Like, I would feel so weird if I said no to this. I know I would regret not doing the trip more than I would regret not having come away with any like killer photographs from it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Got a couple weeks to prepare. Got to make sure I book everything and just mentally prepare. So yeah.
Well, cool. It is your turn for the photographer of the week. So who do we have this week?
Yeah, so this week we have Eugene Theron, who is a photographer. I'm not overly familiar with his work or with his background with photography. I know that he is friends with Murray Livingston, who he's been on the podcast before. Him and I have talked before on here, and he's done some writing for me for Nature Vision magazine. But mainly I bring up Eugene here because back in, I want to say January, I decided to do 2 of these Christmas Secret Santa print exchanges. One was with the Landscape Photographers Worldwide Discord, and the other one was, I believe it was Nick Becker who organized it. And I ended up receiving a print that is beautifully framed, but I don't know where I'm going to end up putting it on the wall because I'm running out of wall space in this small little area. Yeah. But I received a print from Eugene that is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorite images that I have from another photographer, at least as of late. Mm-hmm. I can't seem to find it on his Instagram or on his website, which is
Maybe
a shame.
It's a one of one.
I know I've seen it before, so I know it's not that. I'm not that lucky or special, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight his work because, like I said, he sent that print over. He also sent with it, so that was like an 8x12 print, 8x10 print, somewhere around that. And he also sent along a really lovely note and 3, I believe, roughly 4x6 inch prints, just of smaller scenes, of different scenes. Yeah, I don't know. I just really wanted to highlight his work here. And if you go onto his website, under his galleries, if you're looking at all of his galleries, he has a gallery at the very bottom, 2, 3 up from the bottom, called Unstable. And it kind of highlights, it's called Unstable, a Mental Health Journey. And it highlights a little bit about this battle that he had with mental health towards the end of 2021, that he finally decided to contact a doctor and start addressing the issues that he said were causing severe anxiety and depression. And he says it was the best decision that he ever made. But long before he sought help, he goes on to tell about this time that he just felt like he needed to get out of the house, ventured to a woodland he had seldom been to, no particular aim for the walk, just walk, and brought the camera along. And he ended up coming away with 8 photographs of intentional movement photographs that are just really nice to look at. Like we talked about, like that kind of images that tell a story, that have deeper meaning to them. Is, especially when it comes to mental health, for me, is really nice to see.
Yeah, that's a really very good use of the intentional camera movement. The one, let's see which one it is here. It is the top row of 4, the third image in. It's some tree trunks, and then there's the intentional camera movement. But there's something about the light striking the right side of all the tree trunks.
Yeah,
and then combined with all the elements in the background, it's kind of like there's like this feeling of structure yet chaos at the same time. And then the warm light coming from the side, like maybe it's like a bit of like hope or something along those lines. But there's like this dominant presence combined with the fast shutter speed, or where the camera is stationary for a while, where you see you still see leaves and stuff in the background. But that one has a very interesting feel to it. The whole series is fantastic, but I just really like that light on the side of the trunks on that one. And that one's called Battle. Yeah,
I really like it's the last one that he has on here, Freedom.
Yeah.
Really like that. Just, I don't know. I always hate like trying to explain why I like something, especially because most times it's just a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Like there's no explaining as to why this draws me in the way that it does, but there's just something about it that speaks to me in a sense. And I just, really lovely series of work. And he's got a bunch of other galleries too, specifically of whales.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one of the woodlands one, and where the main image is some trees on a little bit of a slope, misty in the background, but there's this really nice warm light coming in from the left.
That is a beautiful print as well. Yeah, it's actually one that's one of the 4x6 images that he sent.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that one's beautiful because it's the contrast between the warm light and the cool light. Which has this really, it looks like this sort of light that was like that for probably about 10 seconds before something changed.
Yeah.
And the way that warm light moves forward, cool light retreats, it gives like this sense of depth to it. So that one is definitely very, very eye-catching. And then all sorts of other really cool trees. And the second to last image, where there's a misty with like this kind of spotlit clearing in the trees. Again, that looks like this sort of photo where it looked like that for like 5 seconds and then it was gone.
Yeah.
And so I always love seeing that in photography because it's a sign of a person who's very sort of at one with their surroundings and paying close attention to things. Also, the Coast and Ocean Gallery has some really fascinating textures, some close-up small scenes.
Yeah, that's
rocks and sand and all kinds of really great stuff.
That's similar to what the print that he sent me, the bigger print that he sent me, would have been close to. Not necessarily fully abstract or textural, but more of small scene. And it's really bugging me that he doesn't have it on his website. I need to try and figure out if there's a way to find it. Because it's just really, it's a beautiful image. And I know that I've seen it somewhere else. I don't remember if it was on Instagram or... I found it.
Was it Instagram?
Nah, I found it on his Facebook. I can only go back so far on Instagram without it like, oh, you need to log in.
Yes.
So I just did a quick search. I'm going to share it with you in the chat here.
Okay. And it could. I imagine it probably is on his Instagram. I can dig back further.
That's in the chat there. So now you can cool. So now you can actually see what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, like the rocks with some plants and some really kind of warm, soft, low angle light.
Yeah. And like I said, it makes for a gorgeous, gorgeous print. I don't know. Again, not going to try and explain what it is about it that I like. It's just, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for smaller scenes like this. And coastal scenes aren't something that I do at all, really. The closest to the coast that I really get is up in Maine. And the last time that I tried some coastal images of small scenes, the film didn't turn out. So when I go back, probably later this year, I'll try them again. But yeah.
I did find that photo on his Instagram. It was posted October 25th, 2023.
Okay. Do me a favor and send me the link to that. That way I can throw that in the show notes, because Instagram is a little bit easier than Facebook, or a little bit more liked than Facebook, it seems.
Yeah.
When it comes to interactions like that. Yeah. But there we go. Our artist of the week, and Eugene Theron.
Yeah.
I'll have a link in the show notes for his website, for his Instagram. Definitely a lovely photographer.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.